William Burnet, no known image. William Burnet was a Princeton graduate, which was then called the College of New Jersey, and a young physician who had just recently opened up a practice. I'm sorry, not recently, had opened up a practice 25 years before the American Revolution. So he becomes a really important member of his community, and by the time the Revolutionary War breaks out, he gets appointed to the Committee of Safety. Despite being a physician, the Committee of Safety is overseeing the war effort. And again, he's from New Jersey, so the militia, the New Jersey militia, and he retains this position. Now, after Lexington and Concord, Burnet actually uses his own money to establish a hospital for wounded veterans. Usually, this kind of thing was done by the Continental Congress, but he had done it on his own. Now, the Continental Congress sees him doing this, and they recruit him in. Now, many physicians would go on to be surgeons for a regiment or something of that nature, but no, the Continental Congress, I should say, brings him in as physician and surgeon general for the Eastern region. Now, this is a very long, weighted title. There's a lot of words in there, but physician and surgeon general, there were several people. He essentially was in charge of all the medical aspects between Delaware through New York in the mid-Atlantic there. Now there were other people who had this position in other places, and there was a physician and surgeon general above him who was the top dog at the time. But he had a lot of wounded veterans that he had to take care of. And he does this for 3.5 years until the medical department gets reorganized. And then William Burnet is really disappointed to learn that he's demoted to basically a common surgeon. Now, again, they had reorganized. There were simply less people around. Cat coming in happens every time. There were just less people running the medical department. Now, he ends up resigning this position because he got a demotion, and that, these were men who cared about honor very much. But just about a month later, he is sent to the Continental Congress by his home state of New Jersey. Now, he spends a while in the Continental Congress, and during this time, the position, as I mentioned, there was the chief physician and surgeon general of the Continental Army, was the one who oversaw all of the medical aspects, including the other surgeon generals. He tries to get this position. Unfortunately, he does not get put in charge of the entire medical department. James Craig gets the job, but he is able to replace Craig in his old job by becoming one of the chief hospital physicians, essentially taking up his old position under a different name. Now, he resigns from the Continental Congress because he wants to go do this with the Army. And, you weren't really supposed to be in the Continental Congress and the Army at the same time. I don't believe it was an official rule. It was kind of an unspoken rule, especially because there was so much going on both sides. So it would really be best to devote your attention to one or the other. And Burnet serves in this for the rest of the war and then returns to his medical practice. Now, there is one really interesting note I'd like to bring up about Burnet. So we're going to go back a few years to the first year of the war. Back when Burnet was overseeing was one of the people on the Committee of Safety. He had a lengthy correspondence with George Washington. And in fact, when the revolutionaries take over, Ben Franklin's son, William Franklin, was royal governor of New Jersey. And like the other royal governors who continued to side with the king and parliament, he had to go. So Ben Franklin's kid, William Franklin, who again isn't a man at this point, he's not a kid anymore, he's royal governor, he is actually taken as prisoner by the New Jersey Committee of Safety as an enemy of American liberties. And he is told he has to leave the state. Now, Franklin requests to be sent to Connecticut, and they agree to that. However, when they sent out the guards, the people actually guarding Burnet and bring him there, they stop at Hackensack, and they say they're going to wait there until they hear further information from General Washington. Now, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot going on, and Burnet, as one of the leaders of the Committee of Safety, who are right now responsible for this high-ranking prisoner who can be exchanged for some notable Americans, he's worried that William Franklin's going to escape because he's just sitting around there. So Burnet actually writes to Washington about this troublesome situation, and Washington says he will handle it at once. And he says a very intimidating letter to the captain of the guards, which is fun to read because clearly Washington is being he's being very polite, as Washington was wont to be, but he's also, again, being very intimidating about it. And the thing is, there's confusion because the people overseeing William Franklin are militiamen who technically work for Burnet and not George Washington, but also technically don't because New Jersey is in between governments. They have the royal governor as their prisoner, and the new constitution hasn't been written yet, so it's iffy. And he doesn't really work for George Washington, but if you get a letter from George Washington saying to do something, you do it. And that is essentially what happened, and they bring William Franklin to Connecticut. And that is a brief overview of the life of William Burnet.